Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Walks of Life. My name is Abhishek. I'm founder at Lotusdew Wealth. Today, I have a very special guest with me, Rajiv. I've known him for 5 years. He's a successful businessman, second generation businessman, supplying to many interesting industries. Today, we're going to talk about what it means to be a second generation businessman. He's from IIT, so we're going to talk about his education, what attracted him to business. We're going to talk about how he sees business in a very specialized industry that he services, and we are going to talk about how we met and his journey in wealth and how does he think about wealth and liquid and illiquid assets. So welcome, Rajiv. Very happy to have you here.
Thank you, Abhishek. Very nice to be here. Good to have a discussion with you and see where you're going. It's been interesting looking at your journey for the last 5 years too. So yeah, let's see.
Yeah, I mean, the way we met, right? We got in, our first office was in D Labs, which is inside Indian School of Business. Is a small incubator there, and Rajiv was attending a family business masterclass. I think it's a course. It was a 1 year
That's right.
course, right?
Well, it was a 5-day course. if I
5 day
recollect
course,
right,
okay.
yeah.
And the professor there, Professor Ramachandran, he gave me an opportunity to address that gathering, where there were a lot of second generation, first generation businessmen and women who were wanting to basically figure out what's the latest in academia that they could use in that sense in their business. And then I was there with the gang over dinner, and then that's how we met. We connected, and then one thing led to another, and eventually he's also my client as well. But more than client, he has seen me start from scratch as a business, and I always looked up to him because he is running a second generation successful business. We're going to talk more about that, but first let us talk about your childhood, how you grew up, and what it means, or how did you feel when your father was building the business? Probably he didn't have a lot of time for family, or did he have? And how do you kind of do the same when you are in the second generation trying to grow the business? How do you compare both of these roles as a father?
Right. Well, my father started off as a first generation entrepreneur in 1972. And that was a completely different era. I mean, I don't think people today would understand much about that era unless they've been part of that, where it was a complete license and
Sure.
control Raj, where doing anything was extremely difficult. So a lot of time would be required to even, to source materials, because you would require licenses from DGFT to import anything, to do anything. And electronics was such a product that a lot of raw materials were required from outside. So it was extremely difficult, and a lot of time would be spent running around and getting all these things. So you couldn't concentrate on the technical part. You'd be spending a lot of time on doing a lot of legwork, running around, trying to do things to source materials to keep things going. So it was a difficult time, but he managed to set up a company without any resources, just on the back of the fact that that there was a scheme running in Andhra Pradesh at that time, where entrepreneurs would get a loan of 30,000 without having any asset to back it up. So because of that, they both my father and mother, being engineers, both of them were entrepreneurs in the company. So they got a loan of about 60,000, which was assigned to them. So they came here to start off a business, and that's how the company started, because they had a loan. And they first year, if I recollect right, they had a turnover of about 40,000 rupees.
Wow.
And they were very happy with that.
Yes, sure.
Because they came out of good jobs in Bombay.
Right.
Came to Hyderabad to start the company, and that's how they came here. But the next 10 years were very exciting. They did well. They grew. My father was running most of the time, running around doing things from technical to managerial, and to get business. Everything was a challenge. And yes, it took a lot of effort and time. But in 10 to 15 years, he was reasonably successful. And then he decided to start a joint venture with a company in the UK to make another type of electronic component, which was called a potentiometer,
Yes.
where there was a lot of demand for potentiometers in the upcoming TV industry, and there where volume controls were required. So that was a medium scale industry which was started with the participation from APEDC, APIDC, which were the development corporations in the place. And that was to be set up about 80 kilometers away in a place called Jangaon, about 80 kilometers from here, which was a big challenge. So that created a lot of work and a lot of difficulties, and the industrial environment was not very good at that time. People outside the cities thought that industries always make money and nobody has to work for it.
I see.
So there were a lot of labor problems, and then the project got into difficulty. So then it extracted even more time out of it. So in our house, we were always very cognizant of the fact that there was a lot of work and responsibility which my father had to take care of. So the time available was not so much with him, but we always felt that he was there. We never felt that we had any difficulty. We had enough time with him, I suppose. So things evolved from there.
And your brother is both of you are running the same business now. I mean, it's fascinating. So both of them, your parents left their jobs, which was very, very hard to get in 1970s. They left their jobs, took a loan in a different state to start a company in a highly import driven industry, which was difficult to get clearances. So very, very brave people, I think, in hindsight. So you and your brother had this legacy, right, where you saw this business, and I'm sure I understand a business is no less than a child, in terms of how the entrepreneur takes care. It's the same kind of tantrums and the same kind of love and care that you have to undergo. But you studied, you went to IIT, so your parents were doing well in business. What motivated you to go to the best of the best engineering colleges? How did that work out?
It was interesting. I wasn't very sure what I was going to do, what exactly I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be an engineer. So that was given. I had no clear ideas of which college to go or what to do. And somehow I heard about fact that there was a place called IIT, and it was difficult to get into, and people said it was not possible for anyone to get in there. So that seemed like a good enough challenge to work on.
Right.
So and there were a couple of other people also in our class who were also interested, and people started studying for that when we got into 11th. But I would say till the end of 11th class, I was not at all clear what I was do. And then everybody was applying for either brilliant tutorials or otherwise just to, do something.
That's in our generation, we had brilliant tutorials and other, there was no Byju's. Okay?
Exactly. So I decided I took brilliance in the first year, and I didn't like it at all. So I said, okay, let me try Agarwal classes, and the books used to be nice and clean and easy to read as compared to Brilliant. So I said, okay, this makes sense. So I took, I kind of started taking it seriously, and I put in the effort, and I guess it just paid off at the end of it.
I think, that's very humble way of saying that you were just very smart. You didn't, put in the quota kind of hours that you see now.
No, I wouldn't say that. I did put in a lot of effort. You had to, because even to actually, if you genuinely looked at those course material and put in the effort to solve all the questions they would give, it was excellent grounding. But most people, to my understanding, wouldn't do that. They would do halfway and give up. So I wasn't the type of guy who would give up. So I took it more seriously, and I spent a lot of time over 1 year actually working on that. And plus, we were also studying for the local entrance exam, which was called the MSET exam. So I would go to a tutorial every evening from 5 o'clock to probably about 8 o'clock. And after I come home, then the time where the classes would start.
We have to
so then it had to be your own effort to do that.
So we just have to redo the.
That's right. So we had one couldn't depend on getting in through IIT, as everybody knew it was competitive. So the other entrance exam was for the local engineering colleges, which was called MSET.
Yeah.
And MSET required slightly different coaching because we would study in a CBSE board school, and MSET syllabus was under the state board.
Yeah.
So there was a slight difference, not too much, but you needed to be faster and quicker, whereas IIT exams were more testing your capability to understand. These were also testing your speed in the MSET exam. So it required a different kind of discipline. So for that, the tutorials were good. So we used to go for the tutorial. So yes, we did work reasonably hard to get through that part.
Yes, I'm sure. No. I mean, brilliant tutorials at that time. I mean, I also subscribed. I didn't get through, but I remember the books had very poor quality paper, right?
Cyclostyle paper.
Cyclostyle paper. It was like, but yeah, I mean, now that you mention, I kind of got reminded. So now, you are the second generation in a highly specialized business. Tell us about your business. What does it do? It's PEC Electronics. It's based in Secunderabad. But tell us about your business. What is that you do?
So my company's name is Precision Electronic Components Manufacturing Company. It's a rather long mouthful, but in the industry we are known as PEC. That's our short form, and everybody knows us for that. So we make a specialized component called wire-wound power resistors. We make power and precision resistors, and these are used across many industries. So that's the main product.
And so that's the main product. So what kind of industries do you serve? Like, which kind of markets? Are these mostly domestic or export? Are these PSU or private companies? Are these
So our markets evolved over the last 40-50 years. I mean, every 5 to 10 years the entire market shifted. So we started off originally with the black and white TV industry in the 70s. It moved in the 80s to the color TV industry. And then towards the end of the 80s, the TV industry was again evolving very substantially. So we had to move into the telecom, fixed line telecom industry, where all the entire rollout of telephones was going on at that time.
Yeah.
So we started working on the telecom industry, and that went on for another about 10 years. And then from the late 90s, we started concentrating on exports. So exports was slowly built up, and we worked with various different kind of markets across the world. So today we work with many markets. Let's say distribution markets globally. We work with distribution. We work with the power sector. We work with the telecom sector. We work with the renewable energy generation. We work with the metering industry globally. We work with the military equipment and a lot of industrial requirements. So we are spread out. We work with a lot of industries. We have customers across 25 countries. A lot of them are in Europe, North America, and now we're doing more and more in Asia. And of course, India is our significant largest market.
That's
single largest market. So we have about, let's say, most of the time we are about 50-50 exports versus local.
That's a very healthy mix, right? And I think also the weaker rupee has significantly helped competitiveness. I mean, a lot of people feel that weaker rupee is something bad, but for Indian businesses that want to sell abroad, a weaker rupee is a very good thing because it makes us more competitive compared to other countries like Vietnam or China or any of these countries where our products, when priced in dollar, require less dollar purchasing power versus somebody else. So it's a varied mix of industries. We were just talking about you growing up where your parents were the first generation entrepreneurs and how he had to do hard work running around in different places. Now you're running the business again as a second generation, as a parent also. What are the things which are different versus your childhood versus the childhood that your children experience, you being an entrepreneur?
Right. It's a very nice question. What I would say is that with the kind of technology explosion which has happened over the last 20 years, a lot more can be done from your office, from being in India. The things that you can do has expanded.
Sure.
So the amount of traveling required has come down significantly. Yes, you do have to go and meet your clients, but you can you can do a lot more from your location. We do not have to go anymore to the government offices to get our permissions. So I started off when I started off, it was this initial part of liberalization.
Yeah.
So we've seen the whole thing play out from a completely non-liberalized environment to a reasonably liberalized society right now. So it has made business easier. It has made us more efficient. It has given us the chance to scale up where it was impossible to do. I'll give you an example. In 1975, we had the company had opportunities to export, but exporting was so difficult that we used to just send pieces off as free of charge to just to have a contact with the customers abroad.
Oh.
We could. It was so difficult to export. There was no procedure available to actually export in those
Wow.
times. So that we started off like that, and today the situation is that we can send we send multiple shipments out every day from
Every
the factory. Every day, multiple shipment. At least 3-4 shipments are exported per day, and I have seen that from if I go back 20 years, we used to have one shipment a week, and we would struggle. We had a bigger team of people doing the paperwork for one shipment a week compared to the team we have today, which manages 4 shipments or 5 shipments a day.
Wow.
That's the difference. So that's how liberalization technology has affected businesses and has enabled smaller companies to export out of India
and give more time with your kids, right?
Yes, and so that we don't have to travel that much. So that gives us time at home.
Yeah,
and definitely that has given us more time than what used to be the case earlier.
So now, you are in a kind of industry, let's say power sector, renewables, defense. These are very exciting sectors, even in listed markets right now, like, the hottest sectors. What is your perception when supplying to these sectors? For example, is there any particular industry that you find most exciting as a forward opportunity versus another, or you're neutral to that, you're more excited about different geographies? How do you plan in your head how you're going to spend your energy developing a business in a certain direction?
Right. Many of the industries are very exciting now. For example, the power sector is seeing a huge change in India because there's very large electrification going on. So the requirements for scaling up are there. The push from the government of India on establishing and making sure every household is covered with electricity has really grown the market. Then renewables are growing, so the demand on the power sector to evacuate power, transmission and distribution, that's all increasing. Electrification of railways is going on, which is driving railways requirements and electrical requirements both together. Then renewable energy growth is there. So large-scale deployment of solar and wind are going to be key to control global warming. So there's a lot of requirement there. Then we are seeing the requirements coming up in the EV side. We also work in automotives and two-wheelers, and there we are starting to see requirements come up. We are doing projects with customers on EV buses today.
EV buses, really?
For export to European sectors.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we see many sectors of our industry growing. And we are quite excited and hopeful that this will scale up. And as India grows as a manufacturing location, we think we'll definitely benefit going forward.
Certainly. So, just taking a cue from your story, like how your parents benefited from this kind of Andhra Pradesh's entrepreneurial attitude in helping set up new businesses.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you, I run my business here. I'm a Bengali. I feel equally at home, running a business here in Telangana, and that's thanks to the way things are here. So, we have heard a lot about PLI schemes and how it helps electronics industry. Never attracted you? Never wanted to set up something?
So the way the PLI industry was designed, it was designed very specifically for one sector of the industry, which was mobile phone manufacturing. The PLI idea was given earlier by the component industry, but it was picked up by the mobile phone industry, and they took it forward there. So the scheme was designed very specifically for them, where the scale up could happen very, very fast. Now, when it comes to core sector electronics and components at the level we manufacture, that kind of growth is not possible. So the schemes, the PLI schemes, need to be modified for component level production, which is what the discussion is going on at the higher level of government, because today the government has managed to set up an electronics industry, but the value addition is very low. You're looking at 10 to 15% value addition when you make a mobile phone. So you are importing 85% of the value, and then you are adding 15% in your assembly and your packaging processes. But to really increase it from 20% to say 40%, you need to invest in core component capability. And that core component capability takes time to develop, takes time to get approvals. It's very competitive globally, and it's extremely difficult to bring in. So the government is also seriously trying to understand what the roadblocks are and what needs to be done. And there's a lot of industry inputs going into them to make this visible. And we are part of a industry body called ELSINA, through which we are also passing on our ideas and having a input in what the government should do for this for rolling out a proper scheme for component level. So this is under discussion, and we are hopeful that the government will come up with a scheme which is suitable for the component industry. And then if that happens, then there's a possibility that we could take part in that.
Sure. And just for the, so that everybody knows, I don't know, for example, like, you are a very successful manufacturer of core component in resistors. I know that you export to many countries, the best of the brands. I don't know if you're comfortable naming any brand in this video, but if you can, maybe give an example of few brands that you export to.
So we work with very large customers. We work with the companies like Siemens, ABB, GE, Schneider Electric. These are large companies which have got extremely difficult quality requirements, design requirements, and the expectations are extremely high. To be able to serve these customers takes a very long time to gain their strength. So these are all slow-moving industries where you need to establish trust over a long period of time, and you need to have extremely high-quality components which do not fail. So we have experiences where we had supplied customers with maybe 5 million pieces, and we had the customer faced problems with 4 or 5 components.
That's it.
They actually came back with those samples and said, we want an analysis of what went wrong here and how are you going to fix this. So that's the kind of expectations in the global market which we have to cater to, and failure is not an option. There is an impact of the failure somewhere of our product. There are some products which we supply into the automobile industry where if our component fails, the equipment will stop.
Wow.
And if that happens, you're going to have a real problem in your hands. There was a situation also where if our component failed, a train would stop.
A train would stop.
Okay. A train would stop.
With passengers.
Yeah. So these components are in some ways, I found a very interesting notation from one of our customers where they said this component we classify as a strategic component. So we asked, what is a strategic component? So he said, this is a component which is low in cost, but the capacity to cause trouble is very high.
Very high. Okay.
So we have to make sure that our component doesn't fail in any circumstance.
Yeah, I mean, we often ignore the fact that there's so much of hardware which controls our life. Would your components be also useful in the private space sector? I think which is picking up, like where people are sending rockets to private companies. They would also need components. Is components like you are in Resistors business? Is there also a sufficiently large market and supply side for capacitors or diodes?
Yes. Yes, in fact, resistors is a very small part of the passives business. Capacitors and inductors and all are much larger spaces. But each is an extremely specialized industry. Even if you take capacitors, there are many different types of capacitors, and each type of capacitors is a super specialized area. It's the component industry is like a super specialization industry. Each little area of the component industry has to be tackled with great capability, precision, capability, and understanding of the requirements, understanding of the applications for you to be able to survive in that.
And unforgiving customers who don't want to change suppliers.
Don't, because the risk for changing a supplier is extremely high. They get a small benefit, but if something goes wrong, the effect is very high. So it's very difficult for someone to change a supplier. So then it's up to you to, once you get the business, to maintain it. But then the pressures for costs are also very high, because there's global competition. You've got competition from across the world, including China, which can be really difficult to handle. So it's a tough market to be in.
So in such a market, what can you? So there must be other people who are watching who are in a similar situation. Like, what kind of business development techniques work? What has worked for you? What are the tips that you would want to give to somebody who wants to develop a business in a sector where suppliers are hard to change?
Well, it's a long haul business, first and foremost. So you have to be there for the long distance. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint.
Not a sprint.
And you have to build up your capabilities over a period of time. You cannot do it overnight. You have to work at every part of your business, from your product quality, your product design, to your manufacturing capability, your quality control capability. Every part of the business has to work very well. So you want to survive in this, it's only if you've got a marathon in mind. If you want to make a quick buck, this is not the industry that you should be in.
Sounds a lot like wealth management, right? It's hard to change suppliers. Has to be for the long haul.
Yes.
So now, shifting gears towards wealth management a bit. You are an entrepreneur. You're a second generation entrepreneur. Usually entrepreneurs like illiquid assets. They like to reinvest money in their business. They like gold. They like real estate. I have known you for 5 years. I know you're not very fond of few of the asset classes that I've mentioned, like real estate and gold. But tell us, let's start from the beginning. You were in IIT. You mixed with the best of the minds. You could have taken up a job abroad. You could have taken up a career and worked abroad for 5 years and then come back and join family business. If I understand correctly, you right after college, you were in family business. So what attracted you to carry on the profession of your father, which is which is not a new business. It's not your idea. It's not your staff. It's not your baby, but you're still contributing. How does that transition happen?
Actually, I felt that I wanted to be in India at that time. So the idea was that I wanted to do something here, and I wasn't sure how I was going to do it, but an opportunity came up with a particular project which had a particular point of time had to be done. So the choice was whether I would do that or whether I would go and go for a PhD.
PhD, okay.
Yeah, so I had a chance to do a PhD at the University of California in Berkeley. That option was available, and the decision was whether to go there or whether to come back and put my hands in the nuts and bolts of industry here.
Yeah.
So I felt that I wanted to spend some time in the industry, and then I came back. And for some reason, that's continued.
Yes. No, I think, in hindsight, I think that was the best decision. I always, building stuff, making it your own with your brother. I think brother is also involved in the business, right? Mm-hmm. And so now, that was your journey with, actually doing hands-on. I know that you're also a very careful investor. You do research a lot. You study a lot. You are very focused on how your different parts of wealth generation engines are working. Typically, when we interview entrepreneurs, what we have seen is about 15% of their net worth is in liquid assets and the rest is in illiquid assets. Would that ballpark be similar for you, or would it be quite substantially different for you?
I would say I tend to have more liquid than illiquid.
More liquid.
Yeah, so real estate has not been something which I have had a lot of confidence in, because handling real estate takes a lot more effort, and getting in, getting out is very difficult. So for some reason, it's always been maybe probably lack of time or lack of interest in that area. I've kept off it. So I've done a little bit what's required to keep what's the minimum required to keep us going, but I've not spent too much time on that. So and I find it a lot easier to do other things than real estate.
So you are also an active investor, much more active, much more informed than many of the other people I've seen who run business. What attracts you to markets? What is that you like about markets, and what is that you don't like?
Well, there was a time when in my family we did not like markets at all, and we used to keep our money only in FDs, and when a lot of our wealth was at that time in a bank called GTB, Global Trust Bank.
Yes.
And you know what happened to that bank,
Oriental
right?
Bank.
Yeah. So and there was a period of time when that was put under administration, and everything was frozen in that bank.
That must be bad.
Yeah, that was a tough, psychologically tough time, where a lot of our assets were blocked in GTB.
Yeah,
and
the bank failed. I mean, the GTB Bank, Global Trust Bank, failed. I remember seeing TV reports, people queuing up in front of ATMs. GTB that time had actually more ATMs than banks of their size.
Yes.
They were aggressive banks. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what went wrong. And then they got bought out.
I think they were. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they were taking a lot of deposits, and the deposits were used to speculate in the stock market.
Really?
And obviously something went wrong, and then they had racked up losses, and then RBI found that they were not solvent. Yeah.
Yeah. So the CLR, SLR ratios. I mean, SLR ratios are regulatory ratios that the bank needs to maintain sufficient solvency. No bank has 100% cash, but there's a minimum amount of cash that you need to maintain, so that if tomorrow you go to the bank and say, you give me all my money back, they should have that kind of liquidity. So Global Trust Bank, all your FDs in Global Trust Bank, and retail customers queuing up in front of ATMs, there's no way you can get your kind of money back through ATMs, right? So what was that time like?
So we had to just patiently wait till RBI decided to bail out the bank, and asked Oriental Bank of Commerce to take it up, and that went off pretty well. And then after probably about 6 to 8 months of not having access to the funds, we got the access back. And once that access came back, then the idea was to find better ways and to diversify, so that the risk was not in the same bucket, and to find alternate avenues for managing any excess funds which we had. And if you remember, the stock market was not considered a place where you could safely keep money. For many years, it was a satta market, as you would say. So in the 80s and the 90s, it was
much
not
less regulated.
It was not regulated. It was full of very high risk. And slowly in the 2000s, in that year, I mean, you could start seeing a lot more professional management, mutual funds, and a whole breed of new fintechs coming up, and people of a higher quality and caliber coming in there, where you could trust them with your money. So we started experimenting. I think it really started with my dad wanting to experiment, because he had the maximum experience in handling money at that point of time. So we slowly started diversifying into mutual funds and other avenues where we could keep our money, and where it was not just locked up in FD. And also we could see that the rules also were positive, where capital gains
Was tax-free.
the taxations started improving on gains. So it made sense to start diversifying, and it made sense to start using alternate methods of investments. So that's how
Certainly.
we slowly started moving out of the bank FDs into other investments. And yeah, we did a few really high risk ones where we lost a huge amount of money, where we went into buying stocks from unlisted companies, and where we felt that it was safe, but we found out that it was highly unsafe.
Unlisted companies. So, as an advisor, I always prefer, I get a lot of inbound requests like, please sell these unlisted stocks to your clients. We'll give you X% commission. I've never entertained them because they're very risky, and you lock up the money. So Rajiv, you have a pretty large array of suppliers in wealth management, I know. So you have a lot of experience dealing with wealth managers. You've started in 2000, which is 25 years ago, 24 years ago. So what has been your things that people should avoid in wealth management that you would like to pass on as to somebody like you? And I'm stressing the point somebody like you because the issue with somebody like you is that you can make large mistakes, right? So we are talking about unlisted equity as a high risk thing. What happened there?
It's very difficult to gauge whether the management is ethical or not ethical. You can be caught up with a management who doesn't really work for for the shareholders.
Yeah.
They probably work for themselves, and there could be manipulations at that level. And the smaller the company, the more the capacity for manipulation. So if you are really investing hard-earned money, then you need to be really careful of where you invest in.
Sure.
And if you are new to the market, I would say take a very careful dip in the waters by taking small risks first. Try out different products and try out different managers whom you want to work with. Get a bit of experience and then slowly go forward. So I would say calibrate. Don't go don't jump into the water very quickly. Please find out which ones you are happy with, what are the kind of products you are comfortable with, what is your risk
What is your
appetite,
risk profile?
what's your risk profile, what's your risk appetite, and then take slow steps towards what you would like to invest in.
So you also work with pretty big brands who are wealth managers. So is there any benefit among big brands, like in a particular brand that does it well, that you would like to kind of point out?
No, I think you just have to find a set of people whom you are comfortable with, and you've got to understand where they are coming from, what their incentives are, what is it that drives them, and find of course there's always scope for mis-selling in this area. There's always scope for misrepresentation. So if you are lucky enough to work with people who are ethical, who are able to clearly tell you what the pros and cons of a particular investment are, and who are there for the long haul and not for the short haul.
Sure.
Now, you really need to work with anyone you need to work with should be there for a period of time. I mean, if you work with people who are there for 6 months, 1 year, their incentives are very different from people who are going to work with you for years together. So it would be good to find the right kind of person to work with, and then go the whole way with them.
So yeah, I would like to ask you one question I think we have never asked you. When I met you, I was only 6 months into the business. I was really like just one desk and a couple of people, and yet you let me advise you, or you agreed to become my client. What was the reason that time? What made you do it?
Well, I felt that you were trying to do a particular strategy in an intelligent way, and it looked like in my discussions with you, I felt that you understand what you're doing, and you were trying to do something which was interesting. So I thought I could take a risk on you.
Yes. No, I think, obviously, thanks a lot for that trust at a very early stage. I think, it's been a long 5-year relationship with you, which I treasure a lot. But it was very exciting and insightful conversation, Rajiv. It was great to have you here. I think there's a lot for people to learn from in terms of how to do wealth management as a businessman in Telangana now, running a business. As an entrepreneur of your scale and your size, right? Do you have any advice for people who are maybe like a couple of steps behind you, who want to scale up? Like, how do you scale a business in a highly specialized industry like electronics?
Scaling a business in this area is something that is like a leap of faith. You've got to understand your area extremely well. You got to understand your risks very well, and you got to have a clear idea of who your clients are. Once you understand your clients and your strength, then you play to your strength.
Understood.
Don't jump into other areas which are not known to you, assuming that you will know and you will be able to sort out the problems on the fly. This area takes a long time, and it's not something that you can throw a lot of money and get a lot of results. You may have a lot of money with you, but you can't crack these markets easily. So it takes time. These are not markets which scale very fast. You've got to grow organically with the customer. So unfortunately, I mean, I would love to say that we have scaled a lot, but no, we haven't scaled that much. We have grown slowly with the markets. We have grown carefully with the markets, and we have grown profitably with the markets, rather than go for large scale and then fall down, because this is very easy to make a mistake in this business.
Same for us, same kind of style. We are in the business of trust, and it takes time. There's no way to buy trust with money, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so thank you so much for coming all the way from Secunderabad to Gachibowli in Hyderabad, and being present for this wonderful discussion and conversation. Really, really appreciate having you over here and your time. Thank you very much, Rajiv.
Thanks, Abhishek. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
Yes.
And it's really interesting to see the new things which you're doing. And I hope that you can keep adding value to all your customers. And good luck with you. And hopefully you guys will scale up very fast.
Thank you very much. Hope so too.
My pleasure.
Thank you.